Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you here. If you want to follow along, we're going to be in the 25th chapter of Proverbs, starting in the 8th verse. And we're going to deal with some very practical information today. If you've paid attention to the news, you see, like I do, that it appears that the most common way people have decided to solve a disagreement is to pull out a gun and shoot somebody. Seems like practically every day we see that occur. And we're going to get some advice here that helps us deal. Disagreements they're unavoidable. If you put a few people in a room, if you put them together, eventually there's going to be a disagreement. How we handle those disagreements is a different matter. And Solomon is going to give us here some counsel on how wise people handle disagreement. Beginning in verse 8, he says, "Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof, when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame." This proverb specifically is dealing with court cases, that you don't take your time before you make accusations that end up in a court type situation. But in general, be careful before you go into conflict, because you may lose. You may be proven wrong. You may be, as he says, put to shame. So avoid conflict when possible. Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself. That one sentence would probably solve the vast majority of the problems we have in our culture and our society today, if people would simply talk to each other. Instead of talking about each other to everybody else, if they would talk to each other. Discover not a secret to another. Don't tell everybody else your business. Deal with the person with whom you have the disagreement. Lest he that heareth it put thee to shame, and thine infamy turn not away. Again, same thing as in verse 8. Be careful. You might get embarrassed. So you might lose. And so talk to the person with whom you have a disagreement. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold and pictures of silver. Choose the right words. We have all heard since childhood, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And to that I say, you just haven't had the right words said about you, because words hurt. But a word fitly spoken, on the other hand, is a blessing. We need to learn to choose our words carefully. Many relationships, marriages, many situations have been made far worse, or even began to begin with, because of a few unwisely chosen words. As an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. Sometimes you do need to go to others and correct them, to offer them constructive, say one more time, constructive criticism. You need to offer them wise words. And if they are wise, they will take that advice. Turn that around. If we're the one receiving the advice and we're wise, we'll take that counsel and use it to our benefit. As the cold of the snow in the time of harvest, so is a faithful messenger to them that send him, for he refresheth the soul of his masters. Just like the snow in the winter replenishes the ground, a good word, even sometimes if it's a critical word or one that's hard to deal with, is ultimately a blessing and makes us better. Whoso boasteth himself of a false gift. It's bad enough to boast. It's another thing to boast when it's not true. Dizzy Dean, the old baseball pitcher from many years ago. I've read that he made this statement one time that it's not bragging if it's the truth. Well, that's what he's talking about here. He says, don't boast if it's not true to begin with. That's even worse. Boasting damages many relationships as well. Be long forbearing is a prince, long forbearing is a prince persuaded, and a soft tongue breaketh the bone. Just as the wrong words hurt and do damage, he says the right words, gentle words, soft words, wise words can often win over your adversary. And so it tells us to choose our words wisely and carefully. I think you can see just from a quick scan through these verses, maybe if you've got some time today, you go back over them and read them a little slower and contemplate them a little bit more. But just our quick scan this morning, I think you can see how if more of us would govern our life and our relationships according to these principles, how much smoother our relationships would be. And so I hope today you'll keep them in mind. Let's treat each other and govern each other, govern ourselves, and live by these principles. Have a great day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning.